you're serious about people, invest in them. A lot of executives say that people and culture are their secret weapon, but then when you look at their budgets every year, how much are they actually investing in that versus the normal advertising, other run the business types things that they would expect to be doing?
Welcome to the industry's leading business podcast for fitness owners and managers. Each week we invite business experts, coaches, authors and owners from right across the world to share their expert advice with you, the FBP family. This month's interviews are brought to you by our podcast partner, MyZone. MyZone is the wearable technology that enhances paid programming and drives customer engagement. To find out more, go to myzone.org. Over the past 3.5 years, I have done countless interviews on the topic of leadership, and every single time I learned something new. And this week's discussion was no exception. But what really struck a chord with me about today's guest was his ability to learn from situations that he has experienced in his own career and how he's found ways to use those learnings to help and grow others. There are many lessons and stories in today's interview that I truly do believe will help those of you out there who are interested in professional development, both for yourself as well as helping support and grow others. Today's special guest is the Director of Strategy for Excel Fitness, Jeff Helfgott. Since joining Excel Fitness, Jeff has been responsible for scaling the people, process and technology to support its growth from 18 clubs to 62 Planet Fitness clubs across 6 states in the US. As you will hear in our chat, prior to Excel Fitness, Jeff was an Army combat officer, which he did before assuming technology and strategy roles at USAA, McKinsey, and a variety of startups. During my chat with Jeff, we started off by looking at how to identify a future leader. We then discussed what steps to go through to mentor and train them. We chat about the qualitative and quantitative measures that you can use to determine their suitability to a leadership role. And in particular, take a listen to the 9-block exercise that Jeff shares with us. He uses that exercise to support his team and their growth. Jeff also shares steps for club owners and managers to creating their own leadership development program. And last but not least, because Jeff is on the advisory board of the MotionSoft Technology Summit, I specifically wanted to hear his thoughts on the role that technology plays in the development of leaders. Also, later in today's show, I catch up with Pam Kufal, the Director of Content and Engagement for Club Industry. Pam joined me to chat about the Club Industry Obesity Report, which is just about to be released. During our chat, she shares 3 of the major insights that are featured in that report. Now, you probably won't be surprised to hear that the statistics around obesity are frightening, and I really do encourage you to take a listen to what she has to say. We're about to transition to my interview with Jeff, but first, here's a message from our podcast partner. MyZone is a wearable technology platform that leverages personal goal setting, gamification, and social platforms to motivate your members. Learn more at myzone.org. Enjoy this week's interview with our special guest, Jeff Helfgott. Jeff, welcome along and thank you for joining us on the show today.
It's great to be here.
When I was doing a little bit of research around your background and your specialty, one of the things that came up is just how passionate you are about this area of developing future leaders. So to start things off today, can you give us a bit of a definition of how you would identify a future leader?
Yeah, and this is a great segue because it's definitely a place where I've skinned my knees a few times. This is something that gets harder as you scale. When you have a few employees, I think a lot of leaders and owners have the opportunity to engage with their employees every single day. So they can see some of these traits firsthand. And as you scale, it gets more difficult because you have to rely on people whom you've hired and trained, and then the systems that you've developed to help identify. Personally, what I look for are really 3 things. You have number 1, the values. Number 2, how interested people are in coaching and being coached themselves. And then the emotional and then relationship focus that they have. So to dig into each of them a little bit more, number one is the values. And it is Randy from TRX covered a couple weeks ago on your show. Integrity, accountability, authenticity, they're all critical. And for any leader, that's table stakes. If you don't have those, you don't get to play in the game. And then building on that is, coaching and coachability. When I was in the Army, I was deployed in Iraq. And there was one night when we were on our forward operating base, and I was doing an inspection around 3 a.m. just to see how the security detail was being performed. And I came up on a sergeant with a private on the perimeter, and the sergeant was quizzing the private how to call a 9-line medevac request. And I remember thinking, here they are, in a live combat situation where there could be, bad guys coming up on the perimeter at any point in time. And the sergeant still finds this as an opportunity to focus on some training. And, I think about that all the time when I'm in a corporate role, thinking if he could find the time to focus on training then we can find the time to be focused on training with what we're doing. And then the other side of the coin is, are they coachable? How well do they receive feedback, not only from their supervisor, but also from their colleagues and their team members? It's one thing to be able to give feedback yourself. It's another thing to be able to incorporate that feedback into your own personal development. And then the last side is on, the emotional and then the relationship side. A lot of people focus on intellectual horsepower or the IQ. And I found for a leader, you don't want someone who's the smartest person in the room. You want someone who makes other people feel like the smartest people in the room. And, so much of leadership is influencing the people with whom you have no authority over. This means building relationships. This means picking your battles. And I'd say of these 3 traits that I've just been describing, this is the one that it's taken me the longest time to learn, but has returned the greatest return on my investment for having learned.
Jeff, I love those points that you just taken us through, and that story that you shared with us about a teaching opportunity, a teaching moment. In particular, what resonated with me there is actually thinking about how coachable someone is, because I guess at the end of the day, not everyone wants to be a leader. So in your experience, when you've kind of gone through that process of identifying who a future leader might be, are there any signs or signals to look out for someone who perhaps would showcase the difference between someone who is coachable and does want to step up to that role versus someone who perhaps just doesn't engage and isn't that interested?
One of my favorite things to do in our clubs or in any organization is walk around and see who are your employees that are doing everything that you would ask them to do. And then go up and ask them who taught them that. And what I found is the people who are getting great coaching are going to be so happy to share who is doing that coaching and how they got them there. And I found that the people who focus on that are the people who find value in it. So they're generally most open to it themselves. So it's not 100% certain, but more often than not, that's a great leading indicator of someone who's, willing to be learning themselves.
That is definitely a great indicator. What I'd like to do, Jeff, is actually break this down into some steps. So can you maybe take us through what steps you would go through to mentor and to train a future leader?
Yeah, I think, again, it comes down to 3 main steps. Number 1, setting expectations with them. 2, beginning to help refine the mindsets and behaviors that drive their actions. And then 3, role model that behavior yourself. So from the top, setting expectations. And then also, as importantly, as leaders, teaching them how to set expectations themselves. And this is everything from, what does right look like? Which is really, what are the actions that their team should be doing? What are the values that are important to the organization? That's really teaching them how to act. And then how to communicate. What is the expectation of you as a leader? What's the expectation of your organization and your customers? Help them understand what that looks like. And one of my favorite ones to train on with people with whom I'm in a mentor-mentoree relationship is the difference between truth and fact. These two get confused a lot, especially these days in our highly charged political environment. But the difference, as I see it, is a fact might be the project is on time and on budget. The truth might be the project is on time because we cut back on testing resources and we don't have great faith in the quality. It's really important to me that the people with whom I'm working are speaking the truth as they see it. Next up is the mindsets and behaviors. And my favorite analogy for this is the old iceberg principle. You know, what you see every day with the people with whom you engage are their actions. But just like an iceberg, which the majority of it is under the waterline, what you don't see are the mindsets and behaviors that are shaping those actions every single day. So what I want to do with the teams that I'm growing are understand what are the mindsets and behaviors that drive them, and how can we begin to influence them to be more aligned to driving better results with their teams, more aligned to our organizational needs, more aligned to, getting them along further in their career. And then the last one is role modeling the behavior. And this is one that's been really top of mind for me recently, as I think I've actually failed in this one recently. In my role now in my career, I've been working primarily with, director to C-suite level leadership. But I recently took on a mentee who was much less tenured. And, they came to me with a problem one day, and I listened to the problem, and we worked through different ideas together. And then, we whiteboarded out a solution. We crafted the material to help make it real. And then I followed up, a couple of weeks afterwards to see how it was going. And, I was thrilled to hear that the solution that we had crafted together seemed like a great fit for the problem. And this is where I dropped the ball. I stopped following up. I assumed that because we found that solution once, that mentee was still doing it every single week. And he got busy and distracted and he stopped. And that was my fault because I failed to set the example and role model the behavior by continuing to verify that that task was being completed. Leadership is work. To me, this is a great reminder that even basic things that you've learned and done hundreds of times have no value if you're not continuously reinvesting in that skill. It's just like muscles. These skills can atrophy if you're not using them. And that was a really important lesson for me to relearn recently.
I just wanted to take a second to talk about the example that Jeff just shared, because I have seen the same thing happen in a personal training environment. And in that situation, the PT manager had taught their personal trainer a specific system. In this case, it was for that meet and greet conversation with a prospect. Now, at the time, the PT listened, they learnt the language and what questions to use, and they used them with success for the first month or so. But after their manager stopped checking in on them, then the PT started to cut corners a little bit, change the questions up. And what happened was the manager didn't actually pick up that change until they both started noticing the conversion rates dropping. So the reason that I share that example with you all is because it never hurts to check back in with your team and just make sure that the processes and the systems that you put in place, say in the early days, just make sure that they are still taking place today. Okay, we are jumping back to the interview now with Jeff, where I've just asked him to explain if there are any qualitative or quantitative measures that he would use to determine someone's suitability to a leadership role.
I think it depends. A lot of it is, what's the leadership role that you're looking to fill? Leading through rapid growth is different than leading through a belt tightening exercise or cost cutting measures. And I met very few leaders who have been equally effective in all those circumstances. From my perspective, leaders need to be either able and willing to change their approach based off the circumstance or needs of that culture with whom they're working, or willing to step aside when the team needs a different style of leadership. There's that old expression, you need a different general for war than you do for peace. And I think it's been really difficult to pin down any quantitative measures in any of those circumstances. And if anyone has that formula, please let me know. It'd make my life a lot easier. But I found that the more advanced people try to get with building algorithms to be able to detect this, the less accurate it becomes. So the one quantitative measure that I really rely on is 360 feedback, sending out surveys to the colleagues with whom they engage every single day, trying to get a perception of, what's it like to work with that person. And I don't find as much value in the initial results as I do in running that exercise every 6 months with our team to see, are people trending in the right direction? Are they learning? Because I'm less interested in the skills that someone brings to the table. I'm more interested in how are they continuously growing and adapting from the teaching that we're giving and the experiences they're having every single day. And on the qualitative side, I think the best thing that you can do is when you get the team together, ask a question and look around the table and see, when you ask a group of people who work together every day something, who do they look to for guidance before they answer? And is that a question that they're deferring to because of the person's place in the organizational hierarchy? Or is it because they're seen as the informal leader of that team and either a positive or a negative force within your organization? And then to follow up on that, I like to then test how those leaders are leading within the organization by asking their team members, what they're working on and what the organization's vision is. Real leaders like to communicate that vision and keep their team focused on what's really important. And if their team members are able to articulate that vision that was set out for their leader, then I know the message is trickling down throughout the organization.
Jeff, you mentioned in there about doing a 360-degree review, and I think you actually said every 6 months. Now, anyone that's been through a 360 knows that that's quite a thorough process and quite a thorough feedback system to go through. Would you generally take your team through the actual 360 every 6 months, or would you do a 360 once a year and go through a different type of feedback method? I'm just interested to know whether or not it is the 360 that you would do that frequently.
Oh, yeah. We do that every 6 months, and we do an abbreviated version of that.
Okay. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we generally focus on 5 to 8 questions. And generally the questions are focused on how strong of a leader do you believe that individual is? What are the areas that you have seen them grow in the past 6 months? What are the areas in which you'd like to see them continue to grow? And then from time to time, depending on what that individual's or the entire team's needs are, we add a couple more questions in which we can dive a little bit deeper. But these don't have to be major exercises. What we found is, pumping these into SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics and then getting that out to the team in a low-cost way for the people who are taking that survey, because you're asking a lot of time to share the feedback.
Yeah.
And then making sure that you're getting enough participation where the results are anonymous. You can get some really powerful directional feedback that helps you and the team members understand if they're moving the right direction.
That is great. Thank you for explaining that to me, because I think it is important to understand. Anyone that, as I said, has gone through a 360 knows what a big process that is. So I love that you've been able to come up with a simplified version that still gives you great feedback and great, insights around your leadership and how the team dynamics are working. Jeff, I mentioned right at the start of our interview that you are on the advisory board for MotionSoft Technology Summit, and we got together in October of this year to talk about technology and the role of technology in the industry as a whole. What I'm interested to get your opinion on is, what role does technology actually play when it comes to the development of leaders within our industry?
Yeah, I think that's a real white space, and I hope to see more focus here within the next couple of years, because I think organizations are really understanding the value that growing their internal leaders can bring. But I haven't seen technology keep up with that. There are a lot of tools out there to help individuals and organizations better manage, especially tasks and people. But I haven't seen as much focus on developing leaders. So what we look at is, how can the technology help us accomplish something that we're already doing or want to do, easier, faster, or more consistently. So for collaboration, there are great tools like Google Hangouts, Asana, Slack, to help everyone maintain situational awareness of what the organization's working on and how they contribute to that. On the leadership development side, I think an equal part is, as you scale an organization, it's getting harder and harder for your team members to calibrate the performance as they're measuring it. So someone in your organization might rate someone a 5 out of 5 on proficiency on a task, But unless you have very objective measures to evaluate someone's performance, and that's very unusual to have that, someone else in another region might rate that same person as a 3 out of 5. So we look at tools such as the 9-block exercise, which is a concept in kind of the organizational theory of looking at individuals' results versus their ability to coach people on a 3x3 matrix. And then we look at which are the people who are most proficient on both of those in the upper right quadrant. And then we think about how are we giving them more opportunities to grow within our organization? How are we coaching them and keeping them excited to grow with the company? And for the people that fall in that bottom quadrant, who are not as strong at achieving results, not as strong at, driving people development, what are we doing to get them back on track? How can we get them back to that center block? And then the last tool is really education. This is one where, because we've gotten a little bit bigger, we have access to tools that small organizations typically can't afford, but you can replicate a lot of this without some of these tools. So, we do automated workflows now for all of our training. From the moment someone gets onboarded, we've invested the time in our leadership development to say, here's what we need them to know at this point in time. And then rather than relying on managers who are already drowning in the amount of work that they have today, we've educated our system on what we think right looks like. So it gives automated reminders of what training someone still needs to accomplish in order to meet our understanding of what a leader needs to know.
Jeff, that 9 square that you just referred to, my apologies, can you remind me, what was that called? And is that a pre-existing tool, or is that something that you've created specifically for your business?
This is something that's been used in some management and organizational strategy planning sessions in the past. I actually learned this at a company called USAA and then applied this quite a bit when I was consulting with McKinsey. But you can put anything that's important to your organization on those axes. I like to use, driving results and then driving people development. But if you're looking at software engineers where that's not as relevant on the people development side, you could look at technical proficiency. It's really, what does your organization value? And then it helps you have really targeted conversations about, the people who are in that upper quadrant. What are we doing to get them ready for the next role? If they're already top performing in their existing spot, how can we get them ready to step into the next one before we ask them to, so they can begin to learn those skills that are important today? And it's a really great accountability piece for your leaders when you see people consistently falling in that bottom quadrant. But one of my other favorite tricks is when I visit those leaders on the ground, ask them to pull out the coaching that they've had for those individuals over the past 3 months. And we actually review what's the written documentation that they've invested in to have those conversations with those people to help them get them on the right track. If they haven't invested the time to have those conversations with their team members who are falling behind, then it's a great opportunity to remind them that as leaders, that's their main job, is people develop. Actually, I have some material on this I'd be happy to share. This exercise has been consistently one of the most valuable that we found with our leadership teams. And I think this might really help some of your listeners as well.
Jeff, we would be so grateful for that. So if you're happy to send me something, then I will make sure that we add it to the show notes so that all the FBP family can jump over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and check out that material that you are referring to. So thank you for diving into that so deeply, because I'm really excited to understand that a little bit more and see how that can be utilized within a business. So I have saved my favorite question till last today. It's our Fit Inspiration. And to finish off today, can you share the first 3 steps for club owners and managers to creating their own leadership development program for their employees?
Absolutely. This is my favorite part. So number 1, assess where your team is weak. Number 2, build a curriculum. And then number 3, integrate this into everything you do. So to give a little bit more color there, number 1, assess where your team is weak. With the smaller teams, you may already know their opportunities. With larger teams, you may need some tools like a survey to identify, where the team's needs are. When we talked about doing those 360 reviews, you may pick up on a theme of a couple of things that are consistently cropping up that your team needs some opportunity to focus on. So, once you have that assessment in hand, step 2, building that curriculum. And you have to start on the top here, because If your leaders aren't role modeling that behavior, as we were saying before, every single day, then your front line is never going to pick that up. And more importantly, your leaders are the ones who are hiring new people into your organization. So by investing in that curriculum to get them aligned to the vision that you have for your team, then not only are they beginning to role model that behavior, but then they're also taking those insights when they're onboarding new people to your team. And then the last one is integrate this into everything you do. Number one is budgets. If you're serious about people, invest in them. A lot of executives say that people and culture are their secret weapon, but then when you look at their budgets every year, how much are they actually investing in that versus the normal advertising, other run the business types things that they would expect to be doing. And other things are compensation plans. What behavior are you incenting there? A lot of times when you really dig into an organization, you'll find that instead of promoting leaders and sharing of best practices, you have a lot of compensation plans that are focused on incenting people to be great individual contributors. And it's really hard to take a great salesperson and expect them to be then a great sales manager if their incentives are driving them to still be an individual. So I think those are the 3 steps to get your leadership development program off the ground. And the last thing is semper gumby, always flexible. It's going to have to change, and you're going to have to change with it.
Well, Jeff, you know what? When I read that one of your areas of specialty was developing future leaders to reach their full potential, I now know why you are so passionate about this topic, because you're incredibly knowledgeable about this topic. It's obviously an area that you've put a lot of focus into. And I want to thank you so much, not only for sharing your knowledge with all of us here today, but obviously for everything that you do for our industry in regards to developing future leaders, because those tips and the insights that you've shared with us today are things that I know so many of us will be able to take away from and really implement into our own businesses to develop our employees. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you at the MotionSoft Technology Summit 2018. I'm going to be putting all of your contact details in the show notes along with that material that you just mentioned earlier. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining us as a guest on the show today.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Are you interested in increasing your center's income and your trainer's income from small group training? Tribe Team Training is the new way to get more members engaged in small group training and paying extra. Click the Tribe Team Training link in the show notes or go to tribeteamtraining.com.au/podcast for your free formula to see how much income you can make from small group training.
Get ready for this week's bonus segment, your extra injection of information, education, and inspiration to strengthen your fitness business.
Today, I have a very special guest joining me. It is Pam Kufal, the Director of Content and Engagement for Club Industry. Pam, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, Club Industry have released 4 special reports throughout 2018, and I believe you've got 6 coming out in 2019. But most recently, the Club International Obesity Report will be released in December of this year. So what I was hoping we could chat about today is perhaps you could share with us a couple of the key insights from that report.
Yes, thank you very much. We're really excited to be releasing this report in December. And as you know, and as everybody listening knows, the world has an obesity problem, and the United States in particular, I believe, leads with that problem. And so what we wanted to do is take a look at some of the facts around the obesity epidemic in the United States and how health clubs in the U.S. can play a role in resolving that epidemic. So we looked at a variety of statistics, and that's probably one of the things that stands out to me is all the striking statistics that we found. Obesity-related conditions consume 21% of medical spending, and obesity is cited as the cause of approximately 400,000 deaths per year. So it's a huge problem. It's a problem that's costing the country a lot of money. And we also looked at things like, education levels affecting obesity. It's striking to see that people with a high school education or just some college education have obesity rates of about 40%, while college graduates graduates have obesity rates of 27.8%, and that's for both men and women. So it's striking that education levels seem to play a factor. And then we're also seeing that Hispanic and Black Americans seem to have a higher obesity rate than Caucasian and Asian Americans. So that's interesting in particular because if you look at the percentage of people who are members of health clubs, you will see that I believe URSA's latest report mentioned that 69% of health club members are Caucasian and only 11% are African American and only 10% are Hispanic. And yet the population, the Hispanic and Black population have such a high obesity rate. Why are they not feeling welcome into commercial health clubs? Are they not being reached out to? You know, what is the reason that percentage is so low for those groups? So we have a whole story sharing why it's important to reach out to people that you might consider non-traditional health club members. Also, people who are low income have a higher rate of obesity as well. So looking at that, we share an example from the Newtown Athletic Club, which is in Newtown, Pennsylvania, Jim Worthington's club. They have a great scholarship program there so that people who have been members of what is basically a high-end club. They're a very nice luxury club with a lot of family amenities and 3 pools and sports programming for children, etc. But they offer a scholarship program there for either people who are members who have lost their jobs and can't afford their membership for a while, or people who want to be members of the club but just can't afford it. And so there are certain financial forms you have to submit to take advantage of the scholarship program, but it's really a wonderful program that shows that this club thinks about those in their community that could really benefit from all the services that they offer, but maybe can't afford that. And they want to make sure that they take care of those community members. So that's one example that we have in the report that I think everybody should read and could maybe follow their example and do something similar. Another important point is just how important nutrition is in the whole, as far as the cause of the obesity epidemic, and that health clubs just don't concentrate on the nutrition aspect enough. So we're all about having personal training and coming in and doing HIIT training and running on our treadmills and what have you. But do we really teach people how to eat properly? And so we have some examples in there of various health clubs that offer cooking classes or have registered dietitians in their facilities. One is a club called Avenue Fit in Houston. A couple, Brent Gallagher and Cassie Gallagher, started up that facility, and they've done a fantastic job with a cooking kitchen there. There are several other examples in that story that people can read and hear a little bit more about and see how maybe they could adapt some of that into their facility as well. And then the other third big takeaway, I guess I would say, is how health clubs and hospitals and physicians and insurance companies all need to work together to help stem the obesity epidemic. We've all probably heard about Exercise as Medicine, which is a program to get physicians to really prescribe exercise to their members. And that's a wonderful program, but there are other things we can do. And there are ways to reach out to physicians and insurers. And so we talked to Scott Gillespie at Seiko Sports and Fitness, and he shared a little bit about what he does there. We've talked to Executive Health Club, which is a club that Mike Benton started. And Mike Benton has a program called Genovix that really works with insurers and physicians. So there's some really good examples throughout the report. We've got, like I said, about 12 different stories. We've got some wonderful sponsors of the report as well that have contributed some content. And I just want to give a shout out to those 4 sponsors, if you don't mind: American Council on Exercise, Eleiko, Genovix, and Virtual Health Planners. So we appreciate their support of this report and their recognition that this obesity epidemic is truly an epidemic, and that health clubs have a responsibility to help allay the epidemic as much as possible.
Pam, just hearing those couple of key insights really makes me eager to read the full report and find out more. And I want to thank you for sharing those examples like Newtown Athletic Club, Jim Worthington, and also Scott Gillespie. We've had both Jim and Scott on the show previously, and they are both fantastic examples of exceptional sort of operators within our industry and people that are really making a difference. And I love that you've got those case studies included in the overall report. And obviously, as you mentioned, they are just three sections of, a 12 sort of part or 12 stories, as you call it, within the overall report. So for people that want to get hold of this obesity report and to read more, what's the best way for them to contact you or to find the report?
Sure. So we will be posting it online. It will be a downloadable PDF. It should be available around December 20th. And we will also be sending out an e-newsletter that will push people to that report. So what I would recommend is that people go to clubindustry.com/subscribe and go ahead and subscribe to our e-newsletters, and then they'll make sure to receive that report via email, via that e-newsletter. If you don't want to do that, just check our website at clubindustry.com around December 20th, and we will have it posted on our homepage. We'll also be putting it up on our Facebook page, a link to it on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and our LinkedIn account as well, so they can check those out.
Okay, I'm going to say it right now, Pam. Don't wait. Just get on and subscribe, because you don't want to get distracted with everything that happens during the month of December and then miss the report, because this is going to be a great one. So make sure, guys, that you do jump over to clubindustry.com/subscribe. Did I get that right, Pam?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. So jumps directly there, or you guys know that I will put the link in today's show notes as well to make it super easy for you. So you can also go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, check out today's show and have a look in the show notes for that link as well. Well, Pam, thanks for taking the time to chat to us about this. This is an incredibly important topic. And honestly, I know that this report relates to the US market, but it's something that we deal with right across the entire globe. It is something that we must be aware of it and invest our time and energy and give it our attention, regardless of where you are located across the globe. And I am confident that there's going to be information in there that is relevant to every single one of us. So thank you so much for joining us today and chatting to us about those key insights of the Club Industry Obesity Report.
Great. And thank you so much for your support of this report. I agree. I think it's an important report, and I hope everybody's able to take a look at it and gain some valuable knowledge from it. So thank you.
During that chat with Pam, you will have heard me mention our interviews with Jim Worthington and Scott Gillespie. I have added those links to today's show notes, and I've added a direct link to clubindustry.com so you can subscribe and make sure you get your hands on that obesity report. Team Rockstar Fit is an award-winning mastermind team that helps fit pros lead happy and balanced lives. Get mentoring and support. Learn how to grow your business online with Beachbody. You can apply for a free consultation today at teamrockstarfit.com.
Precore Quickfire 5.
This week's Precore Quickfire 5 guest is with the CEO of WEXA, Paul Bowman. Hey, Paul, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, let's get started with your questions. Tell everyone, why do you do what you do?
Big old question to start with this early in the morning in London. So, look, for me, it's my mission, which is the same as the company's mission, which is nice, is to help operators make fitness easy to consume, and we deliver that through technology. So, at the end of the day, what gets me out of bed in the morning is to make sure that our industry stays relevant in an increasingly digital world. And we see our part, and I see my part, is getting operators to embrace technology within their current facilities.
And what's one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
I'm a bit of a geek at just constantly wanting to keep learning, constantly studying the game. I'm a bit of a history buff when it comes to the industry. So for me, it's willingness to learn and willingness to ensure that I can keep learning.
Love that one. And what's one app or system that you use to stay in control of your workload?
I must admit, we use Slack, and we did that from an internal point of view to ensure that anything from an email point of view stays external, and now all of our internal correspondence stays on Slack, and that's helped me a lot. So yeah, Slack.
That is a very popular answer. And what's one book, podcast, or blog that you'd recommend, and why?
I've got two. I've got so one for tech and one for leadership. I'll start with the tech one because I'm representing tech here, so it would be The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly. So essentially, it just taught me we used to have a very utopian view of the way we developed our products and made sure like it was perfect to the absolute degree. But of course, we realized it's really about everything that you create. You just got to keep moving on, keep listening to customer feedback, and keep improving that loop constantly. And that book really, really helped me kind of solve that dilemma, so to speak. And then the other one, I'm very biased and a big All Black fan, but the leadership book Legacy by James Kerr. So essentially, it just has some really, really solid leadership principles in terms of, one, how do you become better as a leader, but also how do you contribute to society. So for me, Legacy by James Kerr.
Well, thank you, because we haven't had either of those recommendations before. So I can tell you right now, both of those are going to make our annual ebook of books that shaped our leaders. Thank you for those.
I'm glad you're getting wealthy from this.
Yeah. And give everyone just a quick overview of the topic that we're going to be focusing on during your main interview.
Yeah, broadly, it's about the digital transformation of the fitness industry. So, what is it maybe, and then what are the advantages of doing so?
A topic that I'm really excited to talk to you about. So thank you so much for joining me today for the Pre-Call Quickfire 5, and look forward to chatting to you during your main interview.
Great.
Join fitness industry peers from around the globe at the 6th Annual MotionSoft Technology Summit in Washington, D.C. You'll learn how the most successful operators in the fitness industry have implemented technology solutions and tools to improve operations, increase productivity, and exceed member expectations. Visit MotionSoftTechnologySummit.com today to register for the 2019 MotionSoft Technology Summit. Before we finish off today, one quick and very important announcement for everyone that is coming along to URSA 2019. You are all invited to the FBP Family Meetup on Wednesday, March the 13th at 6 a.m. If you're not familiar with our meetup walks, this is an active networking event where we walk and we talk for 45 minutes and we return back to the main entrance of the Marriott Marquis San Diego Marina by 6:50 a.m. The meetup is completely free and it is the best way to start your day. Now, we definitely need to know attendance numbers, so please make sure that you jump over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, go to the top of the page and click on the tab that's called Meetup. Then simply register your details for the URSA walk. If you need any more information whatsoever, then just email me directly at chantal@fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Before we finish off today's show, a reminder that all the resources, the links and a transcript for today's episode can all be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. As we come to the end of another show, I want to thank our foundation partner, Active Management. If there's a hole in your lead bucket, you'd fix it. Our founding partner, Active Management, will help you plug the hole in your online lead generating channel with a free download at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/active. Thank you for joining me for another week of the show. I look forward to seeing you next week. And remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.